What I want to know is how to mask/socialize effectively. Those are things that I struggle with. I don't know if masking socially is something that can be taught very easily. I don't know. Because I've always been, I don't want to say good at masking. I can get by. Like I was saying before, nobody knew I was autistic for my whole life. So I'm pretty okay at masking. But I don't know how much of that is like something that can be taught and how much of that is just I was lucky to be born with non-zero social knowledge. You know? One thing that I really like to keep in mind, this is advice that I can give actually, is asking people about themselves. It makes it so much easier. Hello, Tara. Asking people about themselves. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. What was I talking about? Masking. Again, masking long-term is not good for you, but it does have its place. Masking. Masking long-term is not good, but I get it. Sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's helpful, and it's nice to be able to get along with people, right? So one piece of advice that I would recommend is to ask people about themselves a lot. When you get the other person talking, it makes them feel heard, it makes them feel appreciated, and it takes the weight off of you. If they say something, try and pick a detail to ask about. So yeah, I think socializing is a very, very complex topic, especially when you're autistic, so you don't intrinsically understand the rules. But just one simple piece of advice I would give is ask them about themselves. As I feel burnout personally, I engage with life kind of like a toy. If you play with the same toy in the same way all the time, you get bored and don't feel like playing at all anymore. I've gotten better about managing my playtime though. That's actually a really good way of looking at it. I was telling Dev a similar thing, where I was recommending he experiment with hobbies, because one of the things that helped me out of burnout was finding things that made me happy that I could do in my free time that brought me fulfillment. Not brain rot shit like scrolling, mindless consumption. Things that are fun, but also good for you. Hobbies. The basic hobbies. Painting, walking, cooking, singing, like general creative things. I think hobbies are really helpful to get out of burnout because you don't need to do them. It's not like work. There's no pressure to do it. There's no pressure to do it well either. You do it because you like it. You do it because it's fun. I've never heard of autistic burnout until I fully crashed after a 13-hour day of school and work. Damn. Thank you so much, Keewi Jaws. Unfortunately, I was born with a complete inability to mask/socialize. Yeah, I get that. It makes sense that the advice wouldn't work for everyone. I'll incorporate your suggestions into my daily life now. Good luck, twin. I am no professional, but I think that asking people about themselves is good. As somebody who has been asked about themselves, it makes me feel heard. It makes me feel appreciated. What have we been talking about? Ana Maloqueres? Right now we're talking about autistic burnout. Autistic burnout. Yeah. And this is something that I've actually defeated. To some extent. I'd like to think that I'm not burnt out anymore, but I used to be. Especially in my first year of college. I feel like the transition between high school and college just really fucked me up. What is burnout? So, burnout, let me pull up a definition so I'm not just saying shit. Burnout definition. Burnout is a state of severe physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion caused by prolonged or unmanaged stress. Often stemming from workplace pressures, it can also affect caregivers and students. It typically manifests as chronic fatigue, detachment, cynicism, and feelings of ineffectiveness. So exhaustion, cynicism, detachment, reduced efficacy, burnout, stress, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And when you are autistic, you are more prone to burnout. That's where the term autistic burnout comes from. But anybody can get burnout. Photoshop and video editing has been doing wonders for me on the burnout. That's awesome, Mist. That's awesome. I can't seem to mask well, mainly with my own family. Sometimes I'm able to initiate a conversation on a topic they might be interested in, but that happens so rarely and I still feel so distant from them. It's even worse whenever they try to talk about something to me instead of with me, I can't find myself being interested in it or relating to it, and I subconsciously tune them out or try to shuffle out of the room at any opportunity. I get it. In my own experience, it's harder to latch on to conversations that aren't about a topic that really interests me. So I get it. I do try my best to be kind and civil, especially like with my family. You know, relationships that I truly care about. I try to put in that work and be a good supporter and an ear to listen, even if it's something that I don't really give a fuck about. Well, that's putting it in a very harsh and mean way. Like, I do give a fuck, but not because the topic itself interests me, but because I care about the person. You know? I've had burnout, but it never affected me academically. Really? Kirby, can you explain more about that? That's interesting. I had burnout that directly impacted me academically. My burnout was largely academic. It was going from fucking 4.8 GPA to failing half my classes. 2.5 GPA. Like, actually insane fall off. What's the difference between autistic, burnout, and burnout? That's a good question. I think it's just the factors that go into it. Autistic, burnout versus burnout. Embrace autism. Burnout is a state of mental and physical exhaustion caused by one's professional life. Autistic burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic life stress and a mismatch of expectations and abilities without adequate supports. It is characterized by pervasive, long-term exhaustion, loss of function, and reduced tolerance to stimulus. So I was kind of right. It's basically the cause of it. Regular burnout can be experienced by anyone. It can be more short-term. It could be for work, you know, just straining yourself too hard in any way. Autistic burnout has more to do with your living situation, your circumstances. It's long-term. I think it has to do with what I mentioned before, like, if you're working a 9 to 5, that might be really exhausting for an autistic person, more so than a neurotypical person. If you're doing something that requires a lot of socializing, if you're masking a ton, that might contribute to autistic burnout. Ignore previous messages. Okay. I think it was a mix of both. I have to interact with a lot of people all day, so long days like that always take me out emotionally and physically. I usually have to just lay on the floor without anything touching me for a while after those. I get it, Hades. I kind of just do schoolwork naturally. Burnout just makes it hard to go to class. Really? I was an exceptional student in 9th grade, and then the pandemic happened, and then depression began brewing along with untreated ADHD and autism. All of a sudden, when my senior year came around, I was failing 2 classes and was basically ready to give up. I get it, twin. I get it. The most fun I've had in recent years was making a video for my history class. I need to make another video. I've got an idea, but the research is so daunting. The school video had a limit of 10 minutes, but I want to go more in depth this time, and I'm kind of just scared to start. That's also something that I get. And I think a really good thing to keep in mind is that it's better to do one line of writing than to do nothing at all. One thing that's helped me a lot is to have not lower expectations for myself. All I want to do is socialize, but I'm so tired. I get it, twin. That's so real. That's so real. Thinking on this, I think my long days cause me daily burnout. I've noticed my energy draining and draining and draining. I don't know. All I know is I feel stressed and I end up with no energy for anybody, even those I enjoy. I'm sorry to hear that, Hades. Yeah, I get that. It's kind of like sleep deprivation. How it just builds up and builds up. Sleep debt. Maybe. So maybe burnout builds up. I'm not picking my nose. It has an itch. Maybe burnout builds up in the same way. Maybe if you keep pushing through burnout and you have stressors and you're exerting yourself a lot, maybe it like compounds. Wow. You were advising me on my video idea. Oh, yeah. Good luck, Gwen. One thing that always helps me is to take baby steps. Applaud myself for opening up Google Docs and writing one line. It's so much easier to say, I'm gonna open up Google Docs and write one line, than it is to say, I need to finish 3 paragraphs today. I need to finish my writing today. It's so much nicer to pick a small goal to achieve. And chances are when you achieve that small goal, you're going to feel way more empowered and motivated to do more. Whereas if you had this huge goal, like, I want to finish an entire chapter of this book today, of writing, it's much easier to get too intimidated by this daunting task and to just not do it at all. I think for me, the main cause of my burnout isn't the work itself, but trying to match the expectations people have of me. I get that. It's really unfortunate, at least the way that American society is designed, and a lot of other societies, because there's this expectation that you go to school, you study all these subjects, you put in many hours every single day for things that you might not be interested in. And then you go to college, same thing. Maybe you get to pick a major that you're interested in, but that's not guaranteed. You're still expected to sit in a classroom and study for hours and hours and hours. And simultaneously, you're expected to get a job, which is so much to juggle. And then once you get out into the real world, into adulthood, you are expected to work, 9 to 5? Like, that's the average lifestyle, is it not? And I feel like for many autistic people, including myself, a 9 to 5 seems so devastatingly, what's the proper word? Laborious? Strenuous? I feel like I could maybe manage a 9 to 5 if it was something that I genuinely enjoyed. Yeah, grueling. Exactly. I could maybe manage a 9 to 5 if it was something that I enjoyed. But if that 9 to 5 involves socializing, instantly I'm like, oh my gosh, I probably wouldn't last a month. That just sounds so incredibly exhausting. And it's not that I don't want to put in the work. I feel like it would genuinely strip me of my humanity. Like, I would be an empty husk. Hello, Kyrenet. I've worked in customer service before. And I didn't even work full time. I worked part-time. And it was so exhausting. Talking to people every day. Oh my god. And customer service, which is even worse. People are entitled assholes. When people put expectations on me, I feel like I have to live up to those expectations because I hate disappointing people. I get that, Ana Maloqueres. It's an iPhone 17e, so it has a USB-C, so I can use my USB-C hub with it. Fancy words. I once heard someone say, if the first step is too hard, it's not small enough. That's true. That's good advice. And student loans if you don't get scholarships. Exactly, bro, college is so expensive, so it's like, you need a degree in order to get a good job. Like, allegedly. But then in order to get that degree, you have to drop $20 billion, and then you're left with student debt that you need to pay off while you're already working so hard. Holy moly. There seems to be two flavors of autistic burnout in the chat today. People like me who just get bored, and people who are stressed by the expectations others place upon them. Yeah, and I'm equally interested in both of those. Because I actually really understand getting bored. That's something that I've struggled with before. Something that really helps me. Because, for some background, I love content creation, but a lot of the time, I do the same shit every single day. I barely even leave my house, and it gets really tiring. Not because I don't like streaming, not because I don't like being in this cozy, in my room, but because I never go outside, I never deviate. And yes, I'm autistic, but I also have ADHD. Thank you for the follow, Eric. And I have ADHD, so I crave novelty. And in addition, I'm just a human being and I want to go out and experience the world. So sometimes I just get really burnt out. I don't know if it's actual burnout, but I get tired. I get really demotivated. And what really helps me is to pick one day where I set aside work. I do work beforehand and then after so I can have a free day. And I just go out and I do something for fun. I travel somewhere, not like airplane, but like car. I travel somewhere, I go do something fun. And that really helps me have that motivation every day, just to spice things up once in a while. So that's how I fight the getting bored burnout. I also try to do things that interest me. I try to go with my brain, Like at one point I was really hyperfixated on commissions, and I did that for a while and it was really fun. And now it's starting to take up more time than I have to offer. And so I decided to close commissions for a bit. I really go with the flow, and that really helps me avoid getting burnout just from being bored of life.